My name's Mia Barnes. I'm an interior design professional, and this is my portfolio. As we go along, you'll see that it's actually not complete as of recording this. That is something that I'm planning on working on. So essentially what I'm going to do is break it up into two parts. So the first part, I'm going to show you two projects from my new portfolio, and then two projects from my old portfolio in the second half. Okay, so I'm going to start off with this project, the Lincoln Park apartment. Let me zoom in just a little bit. So on the right-hand side, we have the floor plan. On the left-hand side, we have the floor plan, and then on the right-hand side, we have the concept. So this is a young woman who just purchased an apartment in the Chicago neighborhood of Lincoln Park. And she was going to be living with a roommate. It was 2 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms. Her style was very modern, yet maximalist. So I went with kind of modern shapes, but then incorporated some bold patterns and bold colors throughout the space. Her intention to use the space was to host dinner parties, have friends over. She was kind of in the downtown area of everything, and so she wanted to host gatherings and then, kind of go out for dinner and whatnot afterwards. She also worked from home, so it was important for me to make this space functional for both hosting, but then also functional for work and functional for having a nice little retreat space. So that takes us into the main room. The main room is pretty straightforward. We have some nice neutral staple pieces. So the coffee table, the couch, the armchairs, and the ottoman, and the console. Those are all pieces that are pretty neutral, and so as her style changes, those can evolve with her. But to kind of bring into that pop of color, I added in some throw pillows, some artwork, and just a fun geometric rug and a funky little lamp, just to help add to the color. You'll also see some other color ways throughout the other rooms, but that was kind of the color palette that I was working for the living room. My intention with having these little ottomans and these chairs over here is that as she uses the space to host, those ottomans over there can serve multiple functions. They can either be a seating space, or she could use them as an end table and put a little coffee mug on top of them with a tray. Those chairs are pretty lightweight, so they can be moved around, and they also, you'll notice down here, they have ottomans underneath them, so those can come out. They can either be used as footstools or additional seating, something that just really is multifunctional. And again, that helps to, the furniture will evolve with her as her needs evolve with it being so multifunctional. Here is the kitchen and dining. There's a lot of sage throughout this space, and so when selecting cabinetry, we went with a nice light green, and there's a lot of organic shapes, and so for the upper cabinetry, we wanted to have this little art window. She's big into warm tones, so we went with the gold accents, the basic gooseneck faucet with the detachable hose. We went with this fun starburst art deco lighting and some nice gold hardware. And then for the dining room area, so the dining room is right off of the living room. So I just wanted to create a little space, a nook for her to chat with friends. And then these chairs also are pretty lightweight, so if she wanted to move those into the living room, she could. And then we just have a little Sputnik style chandelier above the table, and this fun little painting of a girl drinking a cocktail. I just felt that was very feminine and very very on theme for someone being in their early 20s and hosting their friends a lot. I thought it was really cute. Some other things worth noting is the backsplash being very bold. I wanted to have a really fun pop, but we already have the color with the green, so I just went with a bold pattern for that. Here we have the full bathroom. I just did the full bathroom. I didn't do the half bath because it was something that they didn't really have the budget to adjust. So with the full bath, this flooring and this backsplash is pre-existing. That's already in there. So we're kind of working with the things that we already have. We went with the vanity that has this kind of pinkish red color, and then the wallpaper is this cheetah print, I guess, a take on a cheetah print that has literal cheetahs in it, but then has the pink background in it. We wanted it to be a bathroom that was like Instagrammable, like girls are like taking pictures in the mirror and getting ready together and just having fun. Like I feel like a bathroom is oftentimes like, strangely almost like a communal space, and so I just wanted to be a very fun, crazy, bold place. Again, carrying on with the gold accents, I thought these little knobs were fun on the faucet, and then having some little Art Deco sconces, and then having some gold accessories like the towel rack and the paper towel holder and the hangers and all that. That then takes us to the master bedroom. Again, the client worked from home, so she needed a space that she could do her work from, but then she also wanted to use this little desk over here as like a makeup vanity. With that said, because she sleeps in this space, she wanted it to be very relaxing and soothing. So there's still some bold-ish patterns in there, but it's a little bit more subdued. You'll see that the color that I went with in this room, as opposed to going with like a bright pink, was just kind of this muddy green color, like this nice take on olive green. And then to continue on with like the maximalist style, I went with this funky little checkered wallpaper. And then I just added some fun, bold throw pillows, but if she wants to take them off to make it a more serene space, that's easy to do. And then the bedding is just a nice like taupey color. The bed itself is very cream. Overall, I would say it's a very inviting space. Here's the second bedroom. So this is the bedroom of the girl who is renting out the space. She does not work from home, but she did want a desk. She wanted it to be a space for her to do her makeup, so you'll see this funky little abstract mirror right over here. And again, making this a space that like is very serene, but still has that kind of maximalist feel to it, was something that I was trying to accomplish with this space. So we kind of went with just like a solid, like nice warm gold wall color, and then did a little accent wall with a mustard window treatment. Everything else though is again kind of like a neutral, a taupe. Fortunately, both roommates had very similar preferences when it came to style, so that was very easy to work with. But yeah, I think this just about covers the project for the Lincoln Park apartment. I'm going to move on to the next project. This is the Appalachian Lake House. So the client came into me. She wanted to pick all of her furniture. She was building a new house from scratch. And this was going to be in Appalachia. She wanted it to be a space where her grandkids could come visit, but also it could just be a retreat for her and her husband on the weekends. She also liked to host lots of friends, have nice big gatherings, retreats, so on and so forth. It was a very naturey place, and so she drew a lot of inspiration. She came into me kind of with a little bit of an idea, like a Pinterest board of what she wanted, and there was a lot of like wood tones and charcoal and green and sage, soft blues, neutral colors. She liked textures like velvet and linen and leather. She loved like that raw hardwood look. So that was something that she really drew a lot of inspiration from. And you can kind of see those textures a lot in these concept imagery pictures here. So here's the living room. This was a place where she knew that her grandkids would probably be spending a lot of time in here. So when we were picking out furniture pieces, she wanted like the big pieces to be something that was stain resistant. So when picking out the couch, we decided to go with this dark gray sofa here, and then we have these fun little swivel chairs. She insisted on having swivel chairs, and I think that totally makes sense because then you can be a part of the conversation if you're facing forward, but then also you have these like big windows that overlook the sweeping view of the mountain. You can look in that direction. That was one of the requests that she had that I thought was a great idea. And then we just kind of added on some artwork. I also added in these wooden armchairs next to the fireplace. She had a little bit of extra space. She still does a little bit, but that just kind of gives her more communal space, since that is in many ways the intention of using the space. This is an extension of the living room. This is over on the other side of the fireplace. She loves to read, so we decided to go with just a little reading nook. A little spot to put a couple of leather armchairs, a nice travertine end table so that she could put her coffee down, and then we just have 2 bookcases. I found this really beautiful wallpaper. It's kind of hard to tell on this picture, but there is some millwork on the walls here. And so I decided to use the wallpaper as a way to kind of accent that millwork by putting the wallpaper just within those lines. And then scrolling down to the next page, here we have the dining room. The dining room is just off the living room. We had a 6-top dining table. Initially, we were going to go with an 8-top, but it just felt like it was too much. Like it took up too much space. Just kind of visually too heavy. And also, we already have 2 other spots for seating besides just the dining table. So it didn't really feel like it was necessary. It just felt like it was overkill. Just too many dining chairs. But we wanted to have something that was kind of light and airy. I know going with a white dining chair when you have like 8 grandkids is a little bit risky, but it was something that was a performance fabric, so it was easy to clean, easy to maintain, and so on. With these dining chairs, the rendering is not a full accurate picture, but we ended up going with a dining chair that's not upholstered on the back. Again, just easier maintenance. And then the client had already put in a built-in bench, so then we just added a little a pedestal dining table with some wishbone chairs, just to help give it like a little bit of extra seating, and then that becomes a breakfast table. When selecting the cabinetry, we already had a lot of greens and browns in there, so we went with a nice like light blue with some gold accents, and then we have this beautiful granite that goes all the way up the backsplash. It's just a nice like cream with gold veining in it. Here's the master bedroom. The master bedroom, again, like all the other bedrooms that I've worked on so far in this project, is meant to be a space that is serene and relaxing. I wanted it to be almost like cottage-like, I guess, in many ways, or like spa-like in some ways. So I went with, again, a lot of like earth tones. I mean, I would say this space overall is pretty relaxing, so I didn't really need to draw away from that too much, but I just wanted to make the space feel a little bit lighter, but also a little bit more den-like. So we have this big charcoal wall, accent wall back here, just to make it feel a little bit cozier. But then we have a nice light neutral bed with a neutral duvet. But then I decided to make the top sheet terracotta brown color, so then that way when the bed is made and the top of the duvet is folded over, you get a little peek of that brown. And then we decided to draw that brown in again with the throw blanket and also with the pillows. Kind of drawing in on the nature aspect of this project, we have some nice trees. These are artificial, but they're very high quality and very stunning. And then lastly, we have the rec room. So the rec room is kind of like basement level, but it's on a hill. So on the one side it's the basement, and then on the other side there's a glass sliding door. The rec room is meant to kind of mimic like a country club cigar lounge. And so with that, we went with a lot of leather, a lot of charcoal, a lot of dark wood tones. So it gives a little bit of contrast from what the top level is, but it's still like almost the same color palette. It's kind of just a different take on that same color palette. So we just have these big leather swivel chairs over here. You can kind of see them in the lower corner. We have this big sectional that's great for entertaining. And then behind that sectional, we have a built-in bar with some fun leather stools. And then we just have a little bit of extra seating back here. I thought, well, that was a good space to just kind of, like, most people probably wouldn't sit there, but let's say you have like 15 people over and you just need a couple of extra seats. This way people can still be a part of the conversation and it's still a comfortable place to sit, but people don't have to sit there if they don't feel like it. So that's the end of that part of that portfolio. I'm going to pull up my other portfolio really quick. So this is my old portfolio that I used about 2 years ago when I was looking for jobs previously, and I do plan on inputting some of these projects into my new portfolio. And so I wanted to show you the ones that I planned on putting in there. I'm going to start with the Detroit City Club Sky Park. So the Sky Park is essentially what City Club called their rooftop pools. Detroit City Club Apartments is a real estate company that manages multifamily properties, and they have an in-house design team. I was one of those designers. And their philosophy at City Club Apartments when it came to their design aesthetic was everything had to be colorful. There was no white, no neutrals, and everything had to be patterned. So you'll see throughout this project, there's a lot of like mismatched chairs and mismatched sofas. That was because things would oftentimes go missing or get stained or destroyed. You know, it's just part of commercial work. So their philosophy was if everything clashes, then it makes it easier to replace an item and it doesn't have to like match. You know, it just looks like it's intentional if it's a mismatch. This is the concept imagery for the rooftop pool. You'll see lots of bold, fun patterns over here, but then you also see in the inspiration imagery, it's almost like a bohemian, maximalist bohemian. So that would be kind of that page there. And then here we have the floor plan, just a floor plan key, very brief. We just have a little pool area here. And then we have the barbecue pit dining area down here. We have some large group lounging down here, small group lounging up here. And then we have the fire pits over on the right-hand side. Here's the poolside lounging. These little squares that are up here are built-in day beds. Do not mean to drag that, sorry. These are built-in day beds. They have little end tables in front of them. And then over on the side, we have detached day beds that are standalone. They also have little end tables on them. You could fit about 2 people on there. So it's essentially like a love seat you can lay down on. And then over in the back here, we have the sofa and the armchairs and just some nice big planters and some fun, funky little end tables. This one has a little face on it. It's very fun. This one's got some nice like ridges on it, just very different abstract mismatched pieces. Again, you will see every single fabric is colorful, patterned, so on and so forth. That way, if it rains or if somebody spills a glass of wine on the rooftop pool, then it's not as noticeable and oftentimes looks like it's almost part of the design if that happens. And then over here we have the dining at the barbecue pit. Similar to the day beds on the previous page, over here we have this long strip of rectangles that is a built-in banquette. And then in front of the banquette we have some dining tables and some mismatched chairs, different varieties. You kind of start to see that pattern arise of like these chairs would go here and then these chairs would go kind of almost in random places, again, just because these things tended to go missing. And so then it was easier to replace them without having to worry about, like, does this go? Down here we have the barbecue pit. We have a couple of like bar height tables, and then just some like long 6-top tables just to give people an option if they wanted to sit at a bar top. Maybe they had 3 people, maybe they had 4, maybe they had 6. Just giving different varieties to that. Then we have the large group lounging. So these are some lounges that are under pergolas. Again, giving people options for seating. So you'll notice this pergola over here is kind of split into 2 different groups, whereas this pergola over here is just one big group. So with having one big group, if somebody has a party of like 15, 20 people, they can kind of sit over here. But let's say people just have like 5 or 6, they can sit at one of these little sections over here. And then this is just the barbecue pit that was on the previous page. We have some planters. We have, again, some very fun, bold colors, some funky little coffee tables. This coffee table is actually modular, so you could break it apart, make it into 2 different coffee tables, one that's circular, one that's square. And then we have some fun planters, and that is that page there. Over here we have small group lounging, really just another way of adding more seating, just to accommodate as many people as we could on this rooftop lounge. This was definitely known as like a younger demographic, like college age / like 23-year-olds. And so we wanted to accommodate as many people as we could because we wanted them to use the space. Over here in the center, we have this little art installation that has these round pebbles mixed in with some planters. And then in the center, we had a custom welded art piece. Detroit, this project takes place in Detroit. And Detroit is known for its history with locomotives. And so we wanted to honor that by making this circular sculpture that has hubcaps on it. We hired a local artist to create that for us, and this is basically what the inspiration was for that. After that, we have the fire pit area. I feel like this is pretty straightforward. It's just a couple of lounge chairs, couple of different Adirondacks, a couple of sofas, and then in the center we have 2 different types of fire pits. No, this one was a fountain, and then down here was a propane fire tank, or fire pit, sorry. And then after that, this is my college capstone project. So I did a roastery, which is essentially kind of like a brewery, but a coffee version of that. So a coffee shop that roasted its own coffee beans. My inspiration from this was all about like sustainability and different practices on that. So I used a lot of organic materials, and then I also wanted to kind of draw inspiration from nature. So you'll see a lot of like nature wood tones, a lot of earth tones. And then I also had the idea of putting in this like skylight that goes across the 2nd floor, and the inspiration behind that, like you can kind of see some geometric shapes here. It was inspired by the veining that you would see in a leaf if you were to look at it through a telescope. And then of course all of this plants. I'm a huge plant person, and so I wanted to, with being able to do whatever I wanted in this project, just put in as many plants as possible. And I felt that really helped just kind of give it this fun element of like feeling like it's alive. And then I wanted to show you the next page. So this is the 2nd floor. Or the 1st floor, sorry. This is the 1st floor. You can kind of see these fun little chandeliers that have birds on them. You see in the back here, we have some plants that are kind of in the center. We needed this support beam here. And so I thought it would be fun to put like a trellis up that support beam, and then these climbing vines would eventually make their way up. We just have plants everywhere. Lots of natural materials. You'll see a lot of like solid wood in this. You'll see a lot of like linen-ish materials. Of course, they wouldn't be real linen because it's a commercial space, but they would be a like a performance fabric that mimics a linen. We have a lot of bold colors, a lot of just kind of fun liveliness. One thing to keep in mind is that this location did take place in Ann Arbor, and so I wanted to create some little study spaces. So you see these little like partition walls here. That would be a very fun space that gives you a little bit of privacy to like study if you wanted to, just because Ann Arbor has such a large student population. Here's the floor plan. Here is, down here we have the first floor, and then up here we have the second floor. And then here are just some additional renderings. Again, here we have some study spaces for kids if they want a little bit of privacy, or college kids. And then over here we have the second floor rendering. Just fun little additional plants. I also put this is the utility room here in the center. It was meant to mimic like a shed, so we went with some like wood siding on it, and then put like plants in front of it, and like a nice green door, and then some sconces that can kind of mimic like an outdoor sconce. And then here is the section rendering. I think this is a really good view on how you can see how the plants like give life to this space. I think it makes it look so almost like exotic a little bit, almost like a little jungle that's inside. But also it's just like a fun little meeting space. And that's all that I have for my portfolio so far. Of course, I will be updating my more recent portfolio, so keep an eye out for that. But if you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call. I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you so much. Bye.